So Chainsaw Man just ended, and flame wars are going on here as I'm typing. Apparently, everyone is stupid whether you liked it or not. No one gets to be valid apparently. Compared to the recent endings of JJK and MHA, I feel like there are more people who have at least read Chainsaw Man just due to it not having to deal with the horrors of leak culture. Yeesh. Makes my booty hole quiver just thinking about the misinformation that still exists to this day because of it. And this means that it's far more likely for people who actually know what they're talking about to be talking right now, and simply came to their own informed conclusions, good or bad. Me? I was rather disappointed, I'm not gonna hold you. I felt like there were a lot of plot lines that didn't go anywhere, character arcs that were rushed or left incomplete, and things that were simply never explained. See, I was already having some issues with part 2 for a long time by this point. Denji's constant self-realizations and subsequent pitfalls, Asa being sidelined pretty damn hard like halfway through the story, Yoru's horny ass, and that ugly ass nigga Barum, bro. He's actually a pretty good addition, I just hate his bum ass. In response to the complaints of people like me, the wise fans of Fujimoto would always hit you with the same lines. Just wait. Give him time. Let him cook. That, or hitting you with the Fujimoto cycle of either loving and understanding Fujimoto's craftsmanship, or wanting that nigga strung up in the streets by his cock. And typically, I would agree with this sentiment. It's a weekly manga and the story ain't done yet. Sometimes you just gotta let things rock until we finally hit that aha moment. But my issue here was that this just kept happening. Days became weeks. Let him cook. Weeks became months. Let him cook. Months became years. Let him cook. Nigga, I am tired. When do I get to eat? I am starving over here. There would be a couple gems of chapters sprinkled in here and there, or even seeds of something I'd think to be leading to something special. But then it'd be right back to nigga why territory for another long stretch. Then we fast forward to chapter 231 and oh, what the hell? Nigga, where are we? Why is Pochita the only guy chatting here? What do you mean he's gonna off himself? What do you mean the next chapter is the final chapter? That shit threw me for one hell of a loop, and had a glaring issue that I say carried into the final chapter as well, but we'll get to that in a second. For now, I was just beyond lost, and while not super hopeful for the ending, I still bated my breath and waited. And then I read the final chapter. Denji's sick again and back in his old shack. No Pochita, of course. We jump to him about to get pieced up by the Yakuza, and our good old friend Power returns. Remember her? I sure do, because she's quite literally my favorite character in the entire series. And yo look, Nayuta's back, and she's the figurehead of public safety too, just like Makima used to be. Oh, and look again, there's Asa. And her and Denji even have a rather cute moment. Even if no one remembers anything about anything, or anyone, we got the gang back together and on a fairly quiet but optimistic ending. One that makes me feel like everything could turn out alright for them in this timeline. But the thing is, I read this chapter twice over when it dropped, and I legitimately felt nothing. Complete indifference. No upset, no happiness, just nothing. Nayuta and my favorite character in Power finally make their returns, yet I didn't feel any joy. I wondered why that was, and it didn't take me long to figure it out. None of this felt earned to me. I watched these characters struggle, fall, and mess up, yet still try to make the most of their terrible situations for so long. And despite constantly coming to important realizations about themselves, or the world, or others, they never really acted upon them. So instead, it felt like more setup, and I was just waiting for the payoff. And to me, that just never came. Instead, it felt like I was just given the things that I longed to see, instead of having the characters, most namely Denji, wisen up and start doing it themselves. Power came back, and that's great. But not only did she show up in the very last chapter, she was never found like I longed to see, even if I knew that it wouldn't be the same Power. She's just sorta here now. Same with Nayuta. She lost her head for a bit, but she's just chilling now. Asa has a nice moment, but after being sidelined for so long like she already did, it feels a bit bittersweet to me that she's essentially a footnote in an already fast-moving chapter. And most of all, Denji's new life and outlook, despite being rather tame in comparison to how he was in the old timeline, in a good way, was still rather nice. He could still dream. He has what is likely to become a happy family again, and he's given up the chaos that is Chainsaw Man for a better life. But did he give up being Chainsaw Man? You might be thinking, yeah, obviously, Pochita's gone. No. Did he, as in Denji, give up being Chainsaw Man? No, it was Pochita who made that decision. Denji was just as confused as we were in that chapter. He wasn't really making any decisions. He just had to sit there knowing it was gonna happen. And that's where my main issue lies, a lack of agency from our protagonists. And on top of that, being followed by a world reset where none of the characters we've been following for all this time remember any of the previous events. It seems that they all have a sense of deja vu and an instinctual reaction to the former happenings of the world, implying that the events of the previous world are still ingrained into their bodies in some way. But beyond that, these are basically blank slates wearing the skins of the characters we came to know. But even then, in a vacuum, I actually find these last two chapters to be rather beautiful. I quite like them when I disconnect them from the rest of the story as it happened. But that's not how stories are typically told, unfortunately. And I had gripes for sure. Not to mention that since we start in an entirely new timeline in the very last chapter, that admittedly was a bit longer than his regular chapters, not every question about this new world could be answered. Why are Power and Nayuta alive but not new versions of their devils? I'm not sure. Were only the devils and fiends revived in this reset? Did people like Aki or Himeno come back too? I'm not really sure. How did the erasure of Chainsaw Man change the course of the wider cast's lives and even the world at large? There were a ton of devils and concepts that had to be brought back with Pochita's erasure, and evidently death is a thing again considering people can kill devils again, so I feel like that implies that what Pochita ate has returned to the world. So what exactly is the world like now? I don't know. We never see that. Hell, where has that bum-ass Kishibe been, bro? And I'm not even just talking post-reset here. Where has he been? The supposed strongest devil hunter, and you telling me he was just chilling in Fiji or some shit while the world was being absolutely ravaged to hell? Nigga, you have a job! Work! And back on the topic of agency, most namely Denji's in this case, I know a lot of people view Chainsaw Man as an allegory for an unhealthy addiction, something that's ruining Denji's life, but he just can't give up the high. Even when he seemingly does, he still secretly longs for it, and to be fair, could you really blame him with all the fame and adoration it gave him? So because of this viewing, many people view some of the chapters near part 1's ending, where Denji claimed he wanted to be Chainsaw Man to get plenty of girlfriends and kisses, as a bad thing, an addict to relapsing hard. But I have a different view on this personally, cause I don't really view Denji being Chainsaw Man as much of an addiction, nor as a bad thing inherently. And this is purely because most of the issues that arise in part 2 surrounding Denji's choice of either being or giving up Chainsaw Man were never natural consequences of him just being Chainsaw Man. It was basically always due to outside forces giving him ultimatums to do or do not. Though even keeping this in mind, I would say the worst of Denji's own decisions in early to mid part 2 were him not choosing to save either the young brother nor the bus of seniors, choosing to save a cat instead, as this led to his confrontation with fake Sawman and the Fire Devil much later on. And when he opted to become Chainsaw Man again after Barum's rad ass set his house and dogs ablaze. Nayuta clocked that it wasn't a good idea for him to become Chainsaw Man right now, even with how distraught they were, but Denji did it anyways. And this led to him getting captured by public safety and to Nayuta's death. Well, death in quotes now, I suppose. I feel like the latter was a much more understandable choice born from anger and sorrow amongst other things, but it still had consequences regardless of how he felt. Either way, He was constantly given very harsh ultimatums from sides that wanted him to either be or not be Chainsaw Man, forcing his hand in both directions. No wonder why he constantly tried to make his own third choice. Those other choices sucked. But before any of that happened, it seemed like he was doing just fine balancing his regular and Chainsaw Man lives. Even his desire for tons of girlfriends and kisses from late part 1 felt more like exaggerations to me, and instead of it being a pathetic show of an addict relapsing, was rather a boy who was strung along and left with nothing for most of his life, finally taking control of his life for himself and yearning for more beyond just the bare minimum. Maybe I'm wrong on that and the popular interpretation is, in fact, correct, but that's just how I view things at the very least. But moving on, there were just way too many questions brought about by a huge shift in the story like this for them all to be answered in a single chapter. And I mean, hey, not every single question is gonna be answered at the end of a story. That's completely normal. But I feel like some of these are rather important things to question. Yet even disregarding all of that, I still would have came out the other side rather liking this chapter, with the simple change of Denji being the one to choose to reset the world. Pochita hitting Denji with some hard facts about himself, only for Denji to finally own up to his constant, and I mean constant, poor decisions, and opting to let go of both Pochita and Chainsaw Man to give a better chance at life, not only for himself, but for the world. Because don't forget that at this point, the world was fucked, bro. Them cockroaches and beetles and shit became no joke real fast. It would have made the ending far more poignant to me, even if it still meant no one could remember what happened, because it was still a result of Denji's actions. I would have been more than happy, and it would have made the symbolism of Denji leaving his chainsaw behind to save Asa from tripping and killing Bucky mean so much more in my eyes, because it would have been a true show of this new Denji's resolve. A resolve that could only be born from the ashes of the previous Denji's actions. I would have been more than satisfied with just this. But unfortunately, that's not what happened, and it made it all feel much more hollow to me personally. Oof. And to think that's not even all of my thoughts on Chainsaw Man as a whole. Spent damn near like 5 minutes going off some cliff notes on the matter. I'm sparing y'all niggas from the ramblings of a known yapaholic right now. Hey, it's me from about 2 or 3 days in the future from when I wrote this. I'm gonna have to drop in one more ramble regarding some analyses I saw that I just found to be wholly untrue. And it annoyed the hell out of me when it was presented as a proper comparison, but anyways. Essentially, I saw some people saying that we should be used to Fujimoto subverting our expectations because he does that all the time, which, hey, fairs, he does do that. Is it always good? Well, that's for us to decide for ourselves, but continuing on. They were saying the handling of the Gun Devil in part 1 was an equal comparison to the world's sudden implosion and subsequent reset as shows of subverting expectations in the story, and I wholeheartedly disagree. How the Gun Devil itself was handled was indeed a subversion. Hell, it felt like he was hyped up for at the very least Denji to see the nigga, but nope, not at all. That boy got handled mostly off screen. And thus comes the comparison to the ending of the story, but I'm sorry, I just don't see this as equal at all. The Gun Devil getting washed off screen was done to lead to a reveal that could really only surprise you by being handled that way. Denji opening the door to Gun Fiend Aki, and on top of that, it led to another fight anyways, and it brought about one of, if not the most tear-jerking moment in the series with that snowball fight. It was a reveal that could only happen via said subversion, and still led to more story to be explored afterwards. This wasn't the end of part 1. Meanwhile, with part 2's subversion, wherein I don't think the execution, once again in a vacuum, was poor, but rather the timing of it. I just don't think it holds a candle to it for all the reasons I mentioned before. And granted, again, not every question in a story needs to be answered. That's fine. But I think maybe having only a singular chapter that already rushes through the few story beats it does show to establish what's essentially a new world order is a little nuts, dog. The Gun Devil and Fiend plotline led to something potent, while the ending of part 2 led to something with potential, in my opinion. Okay, just had to get that off my chest. Back to present me now, or I guess past me at this point. So in the end, I find Chainsaw Man's ending to be rather unfulfilling, rushed, and hollow. But that's just how I feel. People with entirely different values, priorities, and interpretations of the story are welcome to enjoy the ending, and they most definitely are. But it seems like very few are able to break away from this mentality of, I must be right, and anybody who agrees with me must be right, which means that anybody who disagrees with me is actually just a dumbass with no reading comprehension. Let's just shut that shit up right now, dog. But I'll leave that discussion for next time. This whole section here was originally a part of the next video I was gonna make, but I thought it would work better as its own separate, less edited filler video. If you like hearing me yap and want to hear more on that, like and subscribe, so you can hear me air out fandoms and their inability to grasp the concept of subjectivity. So basically, homies, what I'm trying to say here is, why did Power get a BBL in this timeline, bro? God damn!